Hi, Sam. I am really excited to talk to you today because obviously we talk about a lot of technological innovations and cool things happening in the industry with the rise of connected solutions. And a lot of times those are aimed at, increasing profitability and leveraging data to, drive better business. And, there's benefits in Meili about that, but your solution is literally saving lives. And like that is just an incredible mix of the ability for companies to integrate technology, not only to make them better and more efficient, but also protect drivers and protect their lives. And additionally, people who are maybe compromised in terms of having epilepsy or prone to emergencies behind the wheel, you guys are providing that confidence to them. And so I'm just so excited to dive into that and learn more. Okay, so you are the founder of Meili Technologies.
Yes.
I'd love for you just to give an overview of your company, what you guys are doing, and kind of the value you're hoping to provide to our society.
Yeah. So Meili Technologies builds operator-focused computer vision safety solutions for passenger and commercial vehicles. So essentially, our biggest value at this point is a health emergency detection system. So understanding somebody's having a health event like a heart attack, seizure, diabetic, emergency, stroke, etc., and then communicate to the vehicle to take action to avoid a crash when available, and call first responders, give the drivers the care they need as quickly as possible.
Interesting. Okay, so there was a lot there. So
Yes.
let's break this down a little bit. You've got kind of this this data side and this monitoring side. You've also had this the aspect of what the car does and what the technology communicates to different parties that can aid in response. And so let's kind of start with what are the things that you're empowering the car to do in the event of emergency or potential emergency.
Yeah. So this is one of our biggest value adds, is that we are highly customizable. So our system really is to its core that detection of an emergency event. And so we try to leverage existing hardware when available. We're a software solution at our core. We can talk about a little bit later in the situations when we provide hardware. But at the end of the day, we really do focus on the detection and that computer vision, artificial intelligence software. And then what we trigger is really dependent on our clients, what they have available and what they prefer for us to trigger. So for instance, on the passenger vehicle side, a lot of vehicles being sold today have the automatic emergency brake assist, able to come to a stop safely in its lane. In future, maybe pull over to the side of the road safely as well. You can activate the hazard lights. You can unlock the doors so first responders don't have to break the window to get somebody care. You can, again, contact first responders utilizing connectivity. On the fleet management side, you can contact fleet management, let them know that their driver is in distress. A lot of times when people have health events, they don't immediately collapse. You can also set off alerts saying, you need to pull over right now in that interim point when a health event occurs before collapse. And so even if you can't trigger all those responses in the vehicle, that intervention in that window is key to reducing crashes.
Yeah. So and then so you're trying to physically do stuff to the car to protect the driver and help in those situations. Who are the key stakeholders? You mentioned like the fleet management, and how does it work when it comes to alerting emergency response and alerting fleet managers to help in a situation like this?
Yeah. So key stakeholders. I mean, we're a B2B company, so we sell directly to the fleet companies as well as the automakers themselves. And so the key stakeholders really are providing them those safety offerings that they care about to help either aid their end customers as well as their bottom line. You mentioned at the beginning that these two are inextricably linked. You care a lot about driver safety. A lot of fleet managers tell me all about the familial aspect of their fleet and their drivers and how they really are at the end of the day looking out for each other. And so it helps with that, enhancing that, showing their drivers that they care. But also does help for reducing downtime, allowing people that ability to, again, get their goods from point A to point B efficiently. And so those are key stakeholders for us. So, but really at the end of the day, our system needs that ecosystem to fully function, but that ecosystem exists and it's just a matter of tying into it. So for instance, contacting first responders, there's a lot of systems out there like RoadMedic or Rapid SOS where you can send information to them and they have those relationships with all the 911 networks. And they can actually call them to the scene, you tell them the location, the type of vehicle, and you get people care much faster that way.
Very cool. And so when you say, you're working with, the fleets, but you're also working with OEMs, so if I go and buy a car in the future, will I be able to have default Meili Technologies on there, knowing that, you have my back if there's an emergency that happens? Is that kind of like the angle with the OEMs?
That's our vision. I mean, 50% of crashes caused by heart attacks, people didn't even know they had heart disease. So anybody's at risk of having a help event behind the wheel. Again, these are very varied. It could be a diabetic event, it could be a one-off freak accident. People of all ages have health events. And so we really see this as a safety system like a seatbelt and something that will be required in the future as a safety solution. I
love that. That's such a great metaphor. And so when it comes to the technology that you're using, let's talk a little bit about the software side. You say you're a software technology first company, and you talk about machine learning and big data, and it's like I feel like half the people that I don't even understand exactly what that means. And so could you help explain a little bit more, like what is that to you and how does that relate to the value Meili provides?
Yeah. I mean, everyone hears a lot about like ChatGPT and generative AI, and it's scary. And it's going to replace everybody's jobs. It's terrifying, and it sounds really scary, right? It's artificial intelligence. The name itself sounds terrifying.
Right.
At the end of the day, especially what we're doing, it's something that's it's not general AI. It's very specific. It's narrow AI, and so it can only do a certain task, and it's all pattern matching. And so the reason why we can add so much value is that we know what health events look like in a vehicle setting, and we're the first ones to really collect this data and mass through our university and hospital partnerships. So we work through observational studies of actual individuals at risk of these kinds of events who are sitting inside of our vehicle simulator, and we actually then collect data of them having these events in the interval between when the event starts and the doctor's intervening and push our system out of the way to get somebody help. Clinical care comes first. But that gives us a good idea of what this looks like in a way that nobody else has. And because AI is just pattern matching, when you know what these events look like, you can recognize what they look like in the wild. And so that's really our biggest core value add, is that we know what it looks like and then we can recognize it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the power of the machine learning side of things. And it's funny because you use this seatbelt example and metaphor, right? And when seatbelts first became requirements, everyone threw up their hands and they were like, "You're stepping in on my freedom and my choice and everything like that." Now everyone wears a seatbelt, right? And so I'm sure you've gotten some pushback on like, well, I don't want to be recorded all the time, and I don't like. So what's how's Meili still providing this value, but ensuring that you're protecting the privacy and the freedom of drivers?
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned the seatbelt thing. I'm from Florida, where you're still not required to wear a seatbelt in the back seat. But no, I mean, a lot of times people still don't wear their seatbelts, and you're never going to convince everybody that safety solutions are in their best interest. And the point is to make the roads as safe as possible while still enabling people's independence and freedom to make their own bad choices. I strongly believe in personal autonomy. It's one of the reasons we started this company, was to enable me freedom of mobility for individuals. And so the way I look at it is our job really is to communicate to people the value we can add and that safety, and also communicate the ways we anonymize their information. So yes, there will be cameras as part of this computer vision system, and it's the only way to have the context necessary to understand when these health events occur. That said, a lot of regulations are already requiring that hardware, especially in the passenger vehicle space, and you're seeing it more and more from an insurance push on the commercial vehicle side as well, because of things like distraction and drowsy driving detection. So we're leveraging these waves you're already seeing of this hardware adoption, and so these cameras are already going to be there, and if people decide to block them or not, it's not just going to be because of our solution, it's going to be, again, that ecosystem of solutions. That said, what we do is we never saber off the full image of the driver. We extract key facial points, key body pose points, and when a vital sensor is available, we'll also leverage heart rate and breath rate. But all of that is completely anonymized, de-identified. We never drive tied to a driver profile on the passenger vehicle side. A little harder to disengage with that on the commercial vehicle side. But again, not a full image video of the driver, for instance. We're not a big brother system.
Oh, okay.
So in that way, with just those points, which are more for facial expression than the actual shape of your face, so again, more anonymized, you are less being watched and more just being observed for potential risks. We're not alerting or like getting you in trouble with fleet management. We're really there to just get you help when you need it.
Yeah, and I feel like it's also, you talked about, hey, this system is reliant on pattern recognition, and so you don't need to know this person is this is their name, this is
Right.
you don't need to you just need to have enough data to recognize the patterns that indicate if someone's having an emergency or not.
Right.
And
right.
I feel like that even helps in anonymizing things, because it's not like just this video of a person. It's
Right.
The patterns that are just trying to be detected. So
Exactly. Things like body pose, facial expression, the movement itself, the way people are moving, if they're reactive enough to external stimuli, all of those are incredibly indicative to somebody having a health event or like altered consciousness.
gotcha. So I want to take a step back, because I want to understand where the motivation to come out with an idea like this came from for you. Because here my thought is this: that building a connected ecosystem in a smart software like this is a massive undertaking, right? No matter what industry you're working in, and it's a complicated thing to do. And but you're not only doing that, but you're doing it in the world of transportation and drivers, and it's like that times 10 complicates things. And so where does the drive and the motivation to even invest in a solution like this come from?
Yeah, I mean, it's very personal to me. You're right, it's a really tough industry to be in, and like bringing a lot of, again, the scary AI to these really big industries, it can be rough. And if it wasn't personal, I don't know if I wouldn't hire anyone else could have the drive to do that. Started this really from my dad. He had pretty severe epilepsy, and he lost his driver's license as a result. He lived in a very rural area in Florida, down the street from the swamp entrance, basically orange groves, cow pastures, quite rural. It was about a 30-minute drive to the nearest convenience store, 45 minutes for me to get to work. My high school is an hour and a half away driving. Cars were a very big part of our lives, and not being able to drive was a huge hindrance to being able to do very basic things. And so for my dad, when he lost his driver's license, he then had to lean on me, his 16-year-old daughter, to drive him to work and drive him to the grocery store and all these things. And understandably, that wasn't particularly fun for him. He was also super technical, like he wrote launch code for the space shuttle.
Oh my God.
So we used to talk a lot about technology and software and just what the future of transportation would look like. And obviously talked a lot about autonomous cars and how those could enable freedom for someone like him, where he could work in the car and wouldn't have to lean on his family as much, and how that would give him that independence and freedom. And as I was leaving my last career, I was just thinking what I actually cared about and what kind of impact I wanted to make on the world if there was one more thing I could do on this planet. And I was like, I want to build that. I want to give people that freedom.
Yeah. So that's such a cool story, and it really highlights the belief and the power of belief as it relates to having a purpose for what you do. And if someone came into this space with a similar idea as you, and they were just trying to hey, make money or think it's just a cool idea, like maybe they would be successful, but you have a purpose on this earth to do this for your dad, and that's just like, it's so powerful. And obviously the brains to get it done, which is really cool as well. So when we first met, I was embarrassed to ask you, how in the world do you pronounce Meili? And you told me a very, very cool story about the origin of that name, and I'd love for you to share that.
Yeah, oh man, well, it's funny, I feel like it's less interesting than a lot of company stories. Meili is the Norse god of transportation. Harshly, we used to be called Adiona, which is the Roman goddess of safe return.
All right.
Turns out there are a number of other companies in transportation called Adiona, and a lot of them are invested in the people we would want to invest in us.
Right.
And it's funny that something like that would be a hindrance for a startup, but it is. And so we were like, okay, so we're not Adiona anymore. What other gods are there in transportation? And so we found Meili because we're bad at coming up with names.
And I think it's a great fit, you know, Norse god of transportation, that's awesome. When we were talking, you also referenced, kind of almost as a side comment, that it also means beautiful in Mandarin.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And that mix of those two meanings is so cool for me, because Norse god of transportation, so your solution is functional, it's related to transportation, it supports that industry.
Yeah.
But also the Mandarin meaning of beautiful, it's like the results that you are empowering people to have, and the abilities that they might not all otherwise have. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's like you got transportation, you got the more tangible and the benefits to just society, but then you got this personal beauty of your solution too.
Yeah.
And I think it's an amazing name. It's
Thank
so cool.
you.
Yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
great.
Yeah, it's funny, we didn't do that on purpose, but if we were going to accidentally mean something in another language, I'm glad it was a good word.
Right? It just means you guys are destined for success.
I'll take it.
So I would, the startups are hard, and you guys have generated a lot of success, and you've talked about doubling, almost tripling your team now in the past few months.
Yep.
I'd love for you to share a little bit about some of the challenges that you're facing and that you have faced in this journey.
Yeah. So, current challenges definitely around market dynamics and different things you're seeing with the industry. So strikes, of course, causing slowdowns on things, especially in Detroit right now. Those are pretty public, all the strikes. The market itself, everyone's quite concerned about the economy, and so people need to see the value that systems like ours can bring. It can't be a nice to have, it needs to be a must to have. And so being able to show that value and communicate that to people is really important. I will say one challenge we had really early on was just getting our foot in the door for conversations. Neither my co-founder nor I had a background in automotive or transportation. And so a part of it was building our network and showing people we weren't just two scrappy kids, we were actually building something and being able to build that credibility and start showing projects we were working on with big companies, be able to show that we actually were building this and how it was coming together. So that was a challenge early on. I think we've gotten past that, which is great.
Yeah.
Now building has become a challenge because we have to move so quickly to meet what people need. And that's why we've had to grow the team because we need to be able to grow and build to be able to meet those timelines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned wanting to discuss a little bit about hardware. I'd like to start just learning a little bit. What are the necessary pieces of hardware that you see in the ideal solution or implementation of Meili?
Yeah. I'm going to change it a little bit because I feel like the ideal solution is unlikely to exist anytime soon.
Okay.
I'll say that there's kind of 3 tiers of how we can operate with people. We can operate with just a vital sensor. I don't recommend this. I don't think it gives enough context to be able to have high confidence of detecting a health event, but that's just measuring things like heart rate, breath rate, and that could be from a wearable, it could be from a contactless measure like millimeter wave radar, which can measure your chest movements and measure heart rate and breath rate from that. A lot of people on automotive are playing around with sensors like that.
Would that sensor be in the car?
In the car. Isn't that cool?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. They're still testing a lot there.
I can't even wrap my head around how that would even work, but that is.
Well, and then think about all the things you can do with that information to help the driver. You can understand comfort settings. Are they stressed? Are they asleep? We learned a lot on heart rate when people are asleep, and also being able to get that feedback, basically making the car a smart watch for your health too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so people are really interested in systems like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
that's
cool.
wild.
Cars are becoming really cool.
Yeah.
So that's one tier. Again, I don't recommend that. I think it has the lowest accuracy and lowest confidence because you don't have enough context to remember how something's moving. The next tier is a video-only based system, and so that's where we operate primarily now, especially in the commercial vehicle space where cameras are quite common. And so that's then where we extract facial points and body pose points. You can use something called RPPG, which can use RGB cameras, changes in your skin tone to measure your heart rate. It's not accurate enough at this point for us to be comfortable using it, and it's very sensitive to lighting changes, so we don't do that. So when we're camera-based right now, we're primarily face points and body pose points,
Gotcha.
understanding those facial expressions and body movements. And so that's kind of the next tier. You can get high enough confidence with that to have a very strong health emergency detection system. So I do recommend that if you don't want the full system.
Right.
To answer your question, my ideal is, of course, a combination of both.
Yeah.
And so especially as you're seeing more vital sensors, and even in the commercial vehicle space, especially when you have people working in like refrigerated spaces where temperature measurement might be really important for operator safety, a wearable is less uncommon there, and so you might be able to get vitals there as well too.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And when you look at the hardware that's needed, and obviously you talk about we're a technology first company, we're software side of things. What are the options your customers in your target market have in terms of utilizing hardware that you provide versus hardware that maybe OEMs are already integrating into the vehicle,
Yeah.
or even the hardware that fleets in the aftermarket are installing? What are the options as it relates to getting Meili Technologies to leverage all of that?
Yeah. We don't want to be a hardware company.
Okay.
We would rather leverage any hardware that is available that is not ours. So that means like video telematics companies incorporating our software to expand their offerings, leveraging their existing cameras. That's our ideal state. It means incorporating with the OEMs directly. So like that's why in the passenger vehicle space we work directly with the automakers, is to actually integrate directly with their hardware. And that said, right now with the way the industry is moving, there's a lot of adoption happening, and it's not widespread enough where a lot of our clients who want our system might not have adopted a lot of the distraction, drowsy driving solutions out there for us to be able to offer that software and enhance it. And so they actually don't have cameras available. And they don't necessarily even want to have like that big brother feel or the distraction or drowsy driving. Again, a lot of people think of their drivers as part of the family. They don't want people to feel like they're just under observation. And so if they're going to adopt a camera, they don't want the whole suite. And so in those situations, and as an interim solution to some extent, we are providing off-the-shelf components of both cameras, connectivity, things like that. And it's making it as plug-and-play as possible.
And so you got this a lot of different hardware options. You referenced Meili as the glue of the hardware, any software applications, and the medical response side of things. You're a certified EMT, right? Okay, so if anyone ever has like a medical emergency in Central Park,
yes,
you might be able to be there to help them. Right?
Yes.
So that's really cool, and I'd love to know from your experience as an EMT and working with this emergency response side of the solution. What is the value that you provide to the emergency response teams, and how does that interaction work in terms of empowering them to best take care of a driver in distress?
Yeah. So New York State certified EMT. I work with Central Park Medical Unit as a volunteer. Like probably half of the weekends. It's really rewarding being able to give back to the community, but of course also can learn so much for the Meili system. So basically some of the biggest things I've learned is that interim space when a health event starts and when somebody might have a full collapse. I've talked to many people having heart attacks. Communicating, knowing they feel off, but not necessarily maybe knowing why. They're not fully incapacitated, and so identifying that window is available is really the key to being able to help intervene and knowing known what those behaviors look like in the wild. Like, it's very different than a hospital. Most doctors don't see health events in the wild. That's really a lot of your like EMS systems that really see that. And they look very different. You can have a lot of different context clues as well as a result. So being able to know what that looks like, that would actually happen in a vehicle is really important and key. As far as what information that would be helpful for first responders, one of the biggest ones is the potential type of health event. We're not predictive as far as like diagnosing health events. We're really understanding generally, do we think somebody's in medical distress, but we're not diagnosing heart attacks, strokes, seizures. We're not a medical device, and we don't intend to be anytime soon. But that said, we can give some indicators of this might be a heart event. So you might want to bring on paramedics, who are the only ones who can give intravenous medicine that can actually help stop a heart attack. The most EMTs can give is like aspirin, and then they have to call ALS and advanced like essentially advanced paramedics in order to get them that full care.
Wow, that's just wild to think about that. Like, you know, I'm thinking before Meili Technologies, it's like a car went off the road, or you know, we got a 911 call, and it's like we'll show up and then figure out what we need and what we need to do. And it's like now, before they even leave to go address the situation, they're like, okay, most likely this is what's going on. This is the expertise we need. And I'm guessing, I mean, they can probably communicate to the hospital and get like specialists ready for when they arrive. And
that's called a note. That's common in EMS these days, where the first responder will pick up someone they know that it's like a trauma, and they need to call the hospital and say, hey, this is like a pretty severe trauma, like get your team ready, and they'll actually be trauma room ready for when you arrive. And so it's like all this ecosystem comes together to get people the care as fast as possible, for sure.
Wow. That's just amazing.
Well, and the crazy thing is, you think about commercial drivers, it's actually twice as common for commercial drivers to have pre-existing conditions, just due to like lifestyle challenges. A lot of those are heart conditions, and there's a lot of regulation put in place to try and mitigate that, but a lot of times it's circumvented. And so the only way to really get people the care they need and help mitigate this risk is to actually have a system like ours there ready to intervene.
Yeah. So that leads me to a question that I have about just the use case and the I guess the need for this solution, because when I think about like, okay, I don't know if I've ever seen like a medical emergency on the side of the road, and I don't know anyone that's ever had, you know, like a heart attack or you know, a seizure while driving, and so you know, I feel like maybe I'm a little sheltered in that way. But what is the impact for, you know, the situations that Meili is going to be able to help with?
Great question. So general population, it's a third of the population has a pre-existing condition. It's crazy. And so like, not everyone's going to have a health event behind the wheel, but you're at risk. And think about life insurance. Like, wouldn't you rather be protected? Again, seatbelts. You don't think you're going to get in a big crash, but you're happy you have that seatbelt if you do. And again, on the commercial vehicle side, it's twice as common. That's actually, I think it was NHTSA or the DOT, one of them released a stat saying about 70% of commercial vehicle drivers have pre-existing conditions.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's very high. And so it's about 80,000 crashes each year in the United States are caused by health events. And when those crashes occur, they're actually 4 times as likely to result in fatality.
80,000.
80,000. It's a lot more than people think.
Yeah, that is a ton.
Yeah. It's common and it's really severe.
Yeah.
You think about distracted driving events, someone's looking at their phone, they usually see they're about to collide right before they do, and they can hit the brake. A health event, someone's usually very disoriented, or if not completely collapsed, and you're not hitting the brake as quickly. Yeah.
Goodness. So I'd love to talk about the future. So, you know, the social benefit is, you know, this safety and protecting lives and saving lives. What are some of the other business and transportation logistics benefits of having Meili be the glue of, you know, their transportation technology solution?
Yeah, no, I mean, one of the biggest benefits really is that, well, you can reduce that downtime like I mentioned before. So if you know a vehicle is just disabled because the drivers help you get that driver the care that they need quickly. You can compensate in the grid of deliveries faster. You can actually help to bring in another driver if you need to keep things moving. And also the vehicle is less likely to receive damage. The goods on board are less likely to receive damage if you can intervene before a crash occurs. And so then you can keep that vehicle back on the road. Someone gets the care they need, they can come back to driving faster without getting a further injury that might hinder them from being able to drive, or worst case, potentially pass away. And so not only are you helping keep everything moving, help protect the driver and the cargo, you're also feeding into the familial aspect. I mean, you want to make sure your drivers know that you care about them and that you care about their safety. It's why a lot of people are also adopting EV trucks, because there's less shaking, less harmful for the driver's organs. Like, this is a big part of why people care about a lot of new innovative technology in the commercial vehicle spaces. The benefit it offers the driver for health, being able to keep everything moving with like their system as well.
And I was trying to think of like what can I compare Meili to? And I know like OnStar, has been around for a long time. And can you talk a little bit about Meili's competitive advantage and what sets them apart from some of the other options that either people have known about for a long time or that may be coming on the market?
Well, I love this question because it's the opportunity to say that like we don't compete with OnStar. They're another ecosystem player in our opinion. So they are a system that would be like the Rapid SOS or Road Medic type thing that is very tied into the 911 system. They have like a third-party call center that like can answer the call, give people the care they need. And so that's already set up for us. We're just triggering let it be activated to get somebody the help they need. And so we really think of ourselves as being a more proactive trigger for OnStar than needing a button push.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm thinking like someone falls asleep or if they get in an accident and they're unable to respond, there's no button that can be pressed.
Right. And a lot of the players out there have a similar like SOS type system. But it's another ecosystem partner in our opinion. And very few people are doing exactly what we're doing because it's so hard to get that data.
And I mean I think the cool thing about you doing the kind of being the glue is that you're providing value to everyone in this ecosystem. We talked about it. We're not competing with any particular provider, and we're not just about the driver. We're not just about the emergency response. We're not just about the fleet management organization. It's literally value for everyone, and that is just awesome.
I am here to try and help everybody travel and live more safely. And I don't know, I think a lot about tech and ethics, and all new tech has the potential to help some people and hurt other people, but I think as long as you go into that with eyes wide open, you can try and mitigate those potential harms as much as possible.
And I mean, just protecting the good of our entire society, not just a certain group. And
And it's the same across age, race, everything. You have to listen to account. So we do a lot with like synthetic data development as well, and that's working with other parties that do synthetic data development much better than we do at this point. And so being able to work with them to help expand that data set and make it even more representative just makes everything stronger. Because that's something you have to think about with any human-focused AI. Like even something where you don't see someone's face, you can still distinguish different demographics. For instance, like people found in resumes, they could quite often, even just on a couple sentences, tell if someone was a man or a female based on the way they wrote because of the way society trains people to communicate. And so if you don't have a representative data sample, or your data sample is already biased in a way that pushes these like expectations or stereotypes, then your model will just enhance those essentially. So I've done a little bit of work of looking at like images of people performing different actions, and it's funny, there's been a lot of research around this. One research actually found that images of a kitchen where you're trying to say the activity is cooking, if a woman, not necessarily, sorry, images of a kitchen, and if you show a man in the kitchen, if you show a woman in the kitchen, it's much more accurate to say that they're cooking if it's a woman, because society typically is like pictured women in the kitchen. If a man's in the kitchen, even if he's cooking, it won't be as accurate predicting that, which is funny. So it's again just an example of like your data, you have to be really thoughtful about what your data says, because a model is just pattern recognition. It's just going off of what you show it.
Yeah.
So you have to question those things, and you have to question, well, is that okay? Is that what we actually want to display? So like, even though we're just pulling out facial points, body points, it's not necessarily tied to your facial shape. People might move in different ways. Like women might move differently than men. I mean, the way that someone operates in a vehicle might be very different. You saw that women were far more likely to have an injury in a car crash because cars weren't crash tested with female-shaped dummies for the longest time.
Oh, yeah.
So like a safety system that doesn't take these things into account is honestly just overlooking some like really fatal flaws.
So we've talked a lot about the application of in-vehicle, over-the-road stuff.
Yeah.
Is there any angle here to, this is such important technology, is there any angle here to expand the focus even greater than in vehicles on the road?
Yeah. So we've started, at the end of the day, kind of like I said at the beginning, we are an operator-focused computer vision safety system for on-road-ish vehicles. That said, we're currently exploring opportunities in like manufacturing, distribution center, factory setting of how we can help with those types of vehicles and the big machinery and an operator-focused computer vision safety system. So obviously health emergency detection is important there, but given these highly often dangerous environments, even more simple things like understanding when somebody's limbs are exposed outside of the machinery can be incredibly helpful in helping with providing safety, but also reducing downtime of these machinery and the operators, especially in the labor shortage.
Yeah. So Meili has this vision of what their software is going to do and empower, and obviously where that's going to be in 10 years is not what it is today. And so in the startup world, it's like you're always taught to start with an MVP, right? Minimal viable product. And so what does the MVP for Meili look like today? And how are you setting that up to allow it to scale into more of a commercial solution?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our MVP today is incredibly accurate with a collapsed state, as well as in highly unusual types of driving behavior and things that can be indicative of altered mental consciousness, which is quite tied to a lot of health events. And so that's kind of our initial version, and we're making it more and more robust with hospital data as we collect it every day. And so as it builds into more of a commercial product, it's about, okay, so health emergency detection is really wonderful, but really we are a safety solution at the end of the day, which can help with all the things we talked about, like reducing downtime and everything else. And so what does that suite of safety solutions look like? And so that's kind of what we were talking about with like the manufacturing spaces as well, being able to expand our safety solution to encompass this more. Is there an idle vehicle where someone might be in danger or have been harmed by somebody and they need help in that way, but it wasn't necessarily a health emergency? You might want to know about idle vehicle alerts. Other things that are very simple for us to include that are all within this safety ecosystem.
Yeah, so it almost goes from like, okay, we're able to understand when an accident happens and how to coordinate that emergency response, but then it's going to evolve into maybe we can start predicting sooner, even before the accident happens, like, oh, this person is experiencing, and as long as that just keeps getting better and better, the results of this solution are just going to compound in value.
The direction of the company and the strategy for how it grows could go in a few different ways, and it's something that's dependent on what our clients are looking for as to what that direction will ultimately end up being. Obviously something we explore with our clients quite frequently. One of them could be like predicting ahead of that. We already try and intervene before the crash, but can we get ahead of it even more and be like, hey, this driver actually, they're having some really funky things happening with their heart rate. They might want to go to the doctor and they probably shouldn't drive for the next week. And like there's obviously a lot of potential ethical issues with that as well that you'd have to be able to take into account, but you can already see some of the value you can bring there and being proactive. It could be also helping with driver health in general of like our people having healthy lifestyles. Again, thinking of the vehicle becoming like a smartwatch helping people live longer, everything as well.
Yeah. Well, I think a great way to end today is, you've achieved a lot of success so far, and you're still, in the beginning stages, because based on how successful I assume that you're going to be, this is just the beginning. And what advice do you have for people out there who maybe have an idea, want to leverage some of the innovation, in technology that's coming on the market today, in order to be successful and to pursue something as valuable as what you're providing?
Yeah, I think kind of three things, and we touched on a lot of them a little bit. Do something you care a lot about. It's going to be hard. The roller coaster is real. There are going to be days when you're like, I'm crazy. I could be like working at a job where someone pays me. Like, why am I doing this? You're going to question everything. You're going to question your life choices. You're going to question like if this even matters to anybody. And you have to care so much about it, and you have to talk to people who can also like show how much it matters to them too. Like user interviews are so important for us, and hearing time and again how we can help people is so motivating for me. But like you need something to get you through those dark times, because when you're starting out especially, it is so lonely. Like you don't have a whole team in your corner helping push it forward. You have to care enough about this to make it a reality, like to take it from nothing to something. And if you don't care about it, like you're not going to keep going. It's just how it is at the end of the day. You don't have to care about that exact value add, but you have to have something that's pushing you like that. That'll get you through those dark times.
Yeah.
So I think find something you care about. It can't just be like kind of cool. It needs to really matter to you. Another big one is be creative in thinking about how you can help it get into the world. Like we started in autonomous vehicles, and autonomous vehicles I still very strongly believe will help enable mobility for all, and I am like rooting for them, but they're taking a lot longer than people thought.
Yeah.
And so we want to survive, and we want to provide this value to people in the world. How can we do that today? And so we've then like moved into the passenger vehicle space of like what cars are being deployed on the roads today, as well as realizing, we can provide a lot of value in the fleet space as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't want to lose focus. That's why we've had to be very narrow on computer vision operator vehicle focus. But that said, if you provide value in different spaces, be creative, because some of them are much faster, and that's how you get your companies to succeed. Startups are all about getting that feedback and getting that traction before you run out of money. And so you have to do that.
Yeah.
And it might not be the initial solution or the initial vision. As long as you're moving towards that direction of the thing you care about, like getting out into the world and so that the company can survive and get to that point is what is critical.
Yeah.
So be creative and think about those things and talk to everybody. Like everybody has a different perspective, and it's always interesting, and it might lead you to an aha moment of how you can do that.
Yeah.
And don't have an ego around it. There's something to learn from everybody.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm certainly inspired by this conversation, and I'm sure a lot of other people will be too. If you could request something from people who hear this and learn about Meili,
Yeah.
how can people who play in this space, whether it's emergency response or fleet side or OEM side, like how can they stand up and help you and support you in this journey?
Yeah, introductions are always helpful in the fleet space, and like that as we're learning about the manufacturing and distribution space more and the value we provide there. Introductions to the very disaggregated fleet and factory settings would be incredibly helpful for finding those clients that align with our mission now too, so we can provide that value to them. It's a little bit of a puzzle of like matching with folks that are on the same page as us, so we can provide that value and then expand as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, thank you so much. This has been an awesome conversation. I appreciate you having the discussion with me, and I think Meili is just going to change the world and go incredible places.
Thanks so much, Mark, and thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Maury, bringing connection to life.